everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files, a podcast about animal rescue and welfare. My name is Kelly, and every week I talk about issues surrounding animals in this country and to the people who are passionate about making their lives better. On this week's episode, I'm going to share with you guys a podcast interview that actually was done by Jennifer Blau to me. So I was on Jennifer's podcast called Beyond Compassion Fatigue. And if you might remember, I've actually shared the episode that I recorded for this podcast with Jennifer 2 separate times because I like the conversation so much. And in this episode, she actually dives a little bit into how I deal with compassion fatigue and some of the boundary issues that we see in fostering. And it's just another really great conversation about fostering, about the emotional toll that animal welfare can take. And so I hope you guys like it. If you are interested in hearing more about compassion fatigue, I do recommend that you check out Jennifer's website. I will go ahead and share it in the show notes, and you're definitely going to want to check out her podcast. So now let's jump into the episode.
This episode of Beyond Compassion Fatigue is sponsored by the Compassion Fatigue Professional in Animal Welfare Certification Program. The CFPAW is the first compassion fatigue certification created specifically for animal welfare professionals and volunteers. If you're the person that colleagues come to for support, if you care deeply about the emotional well-being of the people doing this work, or if you want to help create healthier, more sustainable animal welfare organizations, this program was built just for you. Check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to Beyond Compassion Fatigue, where I blend science, psychology, and spirituality to help you heal from compassion fatigue and build lasting resilience. My name is Jen Blau, licensed professional counselor, author, longtime animal advocate, and former poster child for compassion fatigue. So if you're ready to make your passion for helping animals sustainable, let's dive in. Hello, 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 and welcome back to Beyond Compassion Fatigue. My guest today is Kelly Motter. Kelly is a business owner, foster, and podcast host. She has fostered more than 20 dogs in the last 2.5 years, and she's recently taken that experience and started a podcast where she talks about all the different avenues of animal rescue and welfare in an attempt to bring some of these lesser-known issues into the public's focus. She and her husband, Michael, live with their resident dog, Cheese, and their long-term foster, Max, in the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's welcome Kelly Motter. Hey, Kelly, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to get to talk to you again.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I was on Kelly's podcast. So Kelly has a podcast called The Foster Files. Highly recommend it. And I was on, a few months ago?
Yeah, I think like a month and a half, maybe 2 months. That's probably about right. We had a really great conversation about compassion fatigue. I actually since re-aired and re-released your episode. I liked it so much. So
fancy.
Yeah, I got a lot of really good feedback on that one.
Oh, good, good. Well, I'm really happy to now have you on my show because on your show, I basically talked about, compassion fatigue in general and some of my experiences with it. But now you're going to tell our audience some of your experiences with it. And so early on, I know that you had said to yourself, I can't save them all and I can't save any of them if I get overwhelmed, which I love. What moment or experience kind of forced you to truly accept that? And when I mean truly accept, right, we can recognize something intellectually, but emotionally, that's like a whole nother story. So do you recall like what experience or that moment that kind of really solidified for you?
So I've been fostering now, just to give your listeners a little bit of a background, I've been fostering now about 2.5 years. And my husband and I made that decision together, but I was really the instigator of the whole fostering situation. It was something that I've been thinking about for a really long time. And when we lost some of our dogs and we had less animals in the house, it kind of really felt like now we really had the space, both mentally and physically, to take on that extra task. But I had experienced therapy in my early 20s. And when I went to therapy for the first time, this is going to get back to answering your question. I was going through a divorce at a really young age. And so my therapist that helped me through that, my separation and then my divorce when I was really young, she was the one that really pioneered, like, in order to take care of others, you have to take care of yourself. And so I think it's just been one of those things. I'm that eldest daughter, I'm the eldest granddaughter, I'm the eldest child. So I've always been taking care of like my siblings in a capacity. I'm the person who, really looks out for my friends. I'm a protector by nature. And so it just really early on, it was kind of expressed to me by people that I knew and loved and trusted and respected to make sure that I took care of myself, because without doing that, I can't take care of others. So I'm a very practical person by nature. That's kind of just who I am. Like, I like practical gifts. I like practical things. I'm very task oriented. So even though I certainly can be emotional and I do get emotional, that intellectual side of me of making that decision and saying, I can only do so much. I really absorbed that very early on and really said that, like, if I do go outside of what I know I'm capable of and what I know my husband is capable of and what I know that we're capable of together, it's not going to be beneficial in any way, shape, or form. And if I don't scale what I'm doing, it's going to get to the point where I can't do it at all. And certainly that's not what I want. So that was always really important for me to stay in line. And then as far as just making sure that I don't get emotionally overwhelmed by the massive need in the animal welfare space is honestly just, if I'm on socials and I'm scrolling and I see a lot of it, I literally just change my account or I turn it off completely and I look at something else, because that need is always going to be there. And so you constantly being in that space and constantly seeing the need all the time. If you're into animal welfare, really any type of humanitarian, that can certainly weigh on you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, right? Because we can look at social media or, go to petfinder.com or what have you, and you could literally foster, take in, adopt an animal every single day, and there's still going to be more, right? And
right.
So, but the problem is, for some of us at least, in animal rescue, saying no, even though it's a form of a healthy boundary, right? It feels almost like we're directly responsible for an animal's suffering, which is not the case. Like, we didn't put the animal
right.
in that situation, yet there's still that guilt that I think a lot of us struggle with. How do you personally navigate the guilt that comes with having to say no and having to set these boundaries?
For me, I think it's important to focus more on the times that I'm able to say yes and not on the times that I am in a position where I have to say no. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you're having a conversation with yourselves and you're feeling that guilt, and as far as feeling responsible or feeling like saying no is somehow negative for you or for the situation, I would probably challenge that you have that struggle in other aspects of your life as well, right? Which is a fair struggle to have. But I would probably say it's probably not isolated to just the animal welfare space, right? And so I think a lot of the things that you probably talk about, and you're like worlds more experienced with this than I am, but a lot of the things you probably talk about are like the boundaries that I'm encouraging you to set in animal welfare are probably boundaries you could use in other aspects of your life, whether it's as a partner, as a parent, of a child, of, your parents who maybe are starting to experience different needs, whether it's in your job. So I would encourage people to, instead of focusing on the things that you're saying no to, focus on the things that you're saying yes to, because those are the things that you can do. And those things, I think we all too often play down the work that we are doing in animal rescue.
Yeah.
Maybe because we see someone next to us, quote unquote, doing more. And especially if you're using social media as a barometer for how much you should be doing, that's not going to be a good space in which to do that, because everybody's going to put their best foot forward on social media, right? They're going to talk about the things that they're doing the most, the work that they're doing the most. And you're only seeing a snippet of really what's happening in that person's space or life or organization. So don't use other people as a barometer. Don't use the other people in your rescue as a barometer. Don't use, social media as a barometer. Simply set for yourself what you know you're capable of. And then if you're in a position where you feel like you're handling that well and you can maybe push a little bit past it just to see if that's going to work, then great. And then if it doesn't work, I think this is one of the things that we're just kind of really bad at, is if it doesn't work, we somehow feel like we failed in some way, right? Like if I take on 2 fosters this time instead of 1 and it doesn't work out, oh my God, I'm terrible, I'm an awful foster. When in reality, you kind of were just past what your capacity is. And that's okay, because everyone has a different capacity for different things. Or maybe you have to take a break from fostering and maybe all you're able to do is volunteer for a couple of events for your organization. Or maybe you can't even do that right now, and all you can do is share social media posts. Every aspect of that is important for that rescue, for the animal welfare space. And so focus on what you can say yes to as opposed to what you're saying no to. Because otherwise, we say no to millions and millions of things every day, right? Like we're always saying no to something. So just focus on what you can do as opposed to what you feel like you can't.
Yeah, I really love that, because the thing is, and this is something that I've come to realize the older I get, is that my limitations are becoming more and more apparent the older I get. And so, but the thing is too, our limitations and our capacity, that's something that also has to be flexible, right? So you said, okay, let's see if we can do 2 fosters. Maybe right now we can, and maybe 3 months from now, our situation changes, our mental capacity changes, and then maybe we can't. But maybe 6 months from now, you can get back into volunteering. And so that has to be flexible, right? And so boundaries in general also have to be flexible. So what are some of the specific boundaries that you have had to put in place as a foster? And it sounds like you kind of got a head start on this. It sounds like you're someone who really took advantage of what you learned in therapy. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe it was easier for you, but what are some of those specific boundaries that you have really had to put in place in order to protect your well-being?
A big one for me is truly 1 foster at a time, 1 foster dog at a time. Now, the reason that's such a big one for me, let me be clear. For 8 years, my husband and I had 5 dogs. So we had the capacity to care for 5 dogs at any one time, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean we can care for the different scenarios and the decompression and the learning curve that comes with every new foster dog at multiple dogs at a time. Now, we're in a little bit of a weird space at the current moment because we have a long-term behavioral foster. We've had him, next month will be a year. And he's a challenging dog, and we're working through those challenges, and we love him dearly. He's actually, you can't see him, but he's fully asleep behind me right now. And so we have had 2 other fosters in the time that we've had Max. So we have 1 resident dog currently. Her name is Cheese. We have our long-term behavioral foster, Max. And then we have had 2 puppies that we fostered at different times, younger dogs, since we've had Max. Now, the reason is, I typically just do 1 foster at a time, because if you're in the animal welfare space, you know that bringing that new dog into your house, every time you do that, it's going to be different, right? We don't know what level they're potty trained. We don't know their real behavior. Certainly shelters do assessments, but the dog in the home and the dog in the shelter can be 2 very different dogs. We don't know their capacity for energy. We just don't know enough to be able to say, oh yeah, I can take on this adult dog and this adult dog and this adult dog, right? So, but with Max being here for as long as he has, he's starting to feel like a resident dog, right? And so I feel a little less like I'm doing the work. And so for me, it was like, all right, let me see if my capacity to have a second foster, if I can do this, right? With Max, with what we're capable of, Michael and I together. And so we took on literally a foster that needed 24 hours. He needed to get from transport to his permanent foster. She was unable to pick him up for a day. I said, this is perfect. Because even if it's a disaster and Max cannot handle having another unfamiliar dog in the house, even if it's a puppy, that it's only 24 hours. I can keep 2 dogs apart for 24 hours, no problem, right? Like that's something I know I can do even if it's a disaster. And it went really well. He was great with the puppy. We were like, okay, so now we know we're in a good place. So then we brought in another puppy after that foster went to his permanent foster. And he was amazing with Boone. He was he was playful. He was great. And then we also did have, I can take my dogs whenever I choose into my office because I own my own business. So I was able to take Boone with me during the day. So they were never unsupervised. And, my Max and Cheese stayed at home. And then in the evening, we were able to supervise play, do pack walks, that kind of thing. And so we had Boone for a little less than a month until he got adopted. So my capacity has changed in the sense that I can bring on another foster, but the type of foster I can bring on is different. I do think younger, more submissive dogs are going to be better with Max's personality. So I'm shifting what I'm bringing in to keep everybody safe. But pretty clearly, I was very much like, I'm not doing multiple dogs. I'm not doing that to myself. I'm not doing that to Michael. And even though we've had 5 dogs in the past, we always added them in a month or a year or whatever, big stretch capacities. So you know exactly what you're dealing with. You know what your dogs are cool with, what they're not cool with. You can read their body language. And I just think for me, if I brought in 2, 3 fosters, which certainly some people are capable of, I just think there's too much chaos and there's too much stress, that my threshold is exceeded constantly. Michael's threshold is exceeded constantly. And the reality of it is, if he and I are not on the same page, if we're not a team, it's all going to break down. So our foundation has to be strong. And so keeping that sort of in line has always been really important. And then the second boundary that I did right away is really a testament to the organization that I currently work with, Cross Your Paws, which is I am never pressured to bring in a dog. Never. And right away, and again, that was more of them saying, hey, this is a thing that, you're only going to bring in the dogs that you say yes to. And then me sort of tacking on to that and knowing that that's really good for me. But I am never pressured to bring in a dog. I certainly wouldn't accept any pressure to bring in a dog if it's not the right time, if we have a lot of travel coming up, if we have a lot of family visiting or something and we just can't handle it. I will just say, unfortunately, we just can't do it at this time. But I have brought in, when it was the right time, I brought in a foster from another foster home where that dog was not doing well in there at all. This was about 2 years ago. And we were a great fit for that dog, and we were able to get that dog adopted into a wonderful home. So sometimes I can say yes, and sometimes I can't say yes. And so that's really been kind of the 2 biggest things for me.
Yeah, I love that your organization does not pressure you, because I'm sure there is often this unspoken or sometimes spoken pressure to always be doing more. So
right.
Have you ever, it sounds like the organization is pretty good, but have you ever felt judged by, others just within the animal welfare space as a whole? Have you ever felt judged for setting these boundaries? And if so, how did you handle that? Because that is a lot of pressure, that judgment from within.
Yeah, I had one incident a year and a half ago, 2 years. Well, no, actually, it'd be probably closer to 2 years ago, where we had a foster and we were getting ready to go on vacation. And things are changing now, but at the time, we didn't take any of our dogs on vacation with us. We had 3, 4 dogs plus a foster. And it's just you're not taking them all on a vacation with my husband's family. And, this is not something. So I put it out there to the organization, hey, if this dog doesn't get adopted, I'm going to need somebody else to take over fostering for this week while we're gone, because I'm going to have a dog sitter come in, but I don't want to put it on a dog sitter to manage the foster plus the resident dog situation. I want the dog sitter to just worry about the resident dogs. Can somebody else take over fostering? And this person is no longer with the organization, but I got a reply of, oh, well, we just take our dogs on vacation. Can't you just do that? And I immediately was like, no, that is not going to work. I stay in a house with like 10 other people. Half of them are allergic to dogs and don't really care for dogs, which obviously is not my cup of tea, but that's the reality of the situation that I'm in. So you don't get to say to me that I should be taking my dogs on my vacation. Like that's not going to work. And that's all well and good that works for you. And you can pack 10 dogs into a van and go on vacation. Great. That does not work for me. So I'm also a child-free by choice woman who's been questioned about that decision her entire adulthood. So
yeah, I'm in that club.
Right. But you know what I mean, right? You get judged for that.
Oh, absolutely.
And right. So I just kind of very quickly say, this is not your life. This is not your decision. You're not the one dealing with the consequences. So you can have off. I don't, you know what I mean? It's truly, I don't,
yeah.
You're not the one that's dealing with her in-laws on vacation. You're not the one who's saying, well, like, I want a break and I want to be able to actually go on vacation and not worry about this and not worry about that. You're not the one who has to explain to a dog sitter why there's a foster dog here that they didn't sign up for. So either you can help me by taking in this dog for a week or you can scroll past. Mm-hmm. Those are your two choices because I don't accept your judgment.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it sounds like you are really assertive when it comes to setting those boundaries. And that is not always easy, right?
No.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, I've struggled with assertiveness. I know a lot of my clients, especially in animal welfare, struggle with assertiveness. And so assertiveness and boundaries kind of go hand in hand. And so let's kind of go back to when you go from one foster to another. So do you have so I know people who they'll say, okay, I have kind of a specific time that I allow between fosters before I bring on another. How do you kind of decide when you're an empty house as far as fostering, how do you decide when to say yes to a foster and when to say no? So for example, do you only foster dogs? Do you only foster, behavior cases? Do you only foster certain ages? What are your kind of, not requirements, but how do you decide?
Parameters, maybe.
Parameters, thank you. Yeah. So how do you decide to say yes and when to say no?
So I wouldn't say that I go into it in a very structured way. I think one of the things that has worked for us is that we sort of say yes and no based on what's going on right now, as opposed to saying we only do this, we only do that, right? Because again, prior to having Max, our long-term foster we have right now, I definitely was like, I want to take adult dogs because adult dogs get a lot less attention. They are harder to adopt out and they have a hard time getting out of the shelter. They're much more likely to be euthanized, all of those things, right? So I have primarily in the past focused on adult dogs. Simply because I know they're just much more likely to not make it out of the shelter system. And I also feel confident in my capabilities and Michael's capabilities to handle an adult dog. So that in the past is what we've done. We've had to flex and change that with now having Max because I think a strong-willed adult dog would not do well with him. And so I want to be very careful about the dogs that I bring in because Max is a different type of energy and he needs managed. So I think for me, what I look at is whenever CYP posts that a transport is coming, if I'm currently available, I'll kind of just look through the post and see if any dog jumps out at me as potentially being a fit, right? So maybe it's just, that maybe it's their picture that jumps out at me. Maybe it's their description that jumps out at me. Who knows? I'll see if they're potentially a fit. And then if I have a particular scenario going on like I do with Max, I might reach out to the shelter manager and say, hey, can you tell me a little bit about this dog's play personality, especially with him? What's that like? What's that been like? Is that dog crate trained? That's not a deal breaker for me. I just want to know what I'm getting into. We have the ability that when a foster comes in, we can separate things. We can use the doors in our house and the way that our yard is set up as a tool to keep certain dogs away from certain dogs for a time period, especially if we need to, especially that first decompression period, right? So we do utilize our house as a tool in that way and separating things. But I would say that every time I'm going to take on a foster, I'm thinking about different things. What do we have coming up in the next month or two? If this dog doesn't get adopted, is that going to be a problem? Right? And really just kind of seeing, like right now, they might have a transport coming up here soon, but I have a bunch of family coming into town this weekend. I'm relatively open in June, but in July, I have a lot going on. I have my niece is coming to visit. We're going on vacation. My other niece is coming to visit. I got a lot going on in July. So July would not be an ideal month for me to be able to focus on bringing in another dog. So if it gets to be late June, I probably won't take in a foster just because there's a possibility it won't get adopted. And the organization I work with is strictly foster based. So there's no shelter for me to take the dog back to if something doesn't work out. So I do have to be intentional in my decision making. What's coming up in the next month or two if this dog doesn't get adopted? And what steps can I take to get this dog adopted? Is this dog okay with people? Can I take it to the office to get it more socialization and also keep an eye on it, get to know the dog better, so on and so forth. So I don't have like a particular structure in place that doesn't work for me, but just kind of thinking about it on a case-by-case basis allows me that flexibility to do what I need to do like in that moment.
Okay, yeah. And so we talk about fostering, and there's so many rewarding aspects to it, you know, when the animal finally gets adopted or just, you know, seeing Max really getting along with a puppy. And the thing is, you know, even though it's rewarding, you are still exposed to suffering. And I think people may not, you know, people on the outside may not really realize that when they think, oh, you're a foster, how fun. And yeah, it is fun, right, but you're also exposed to a lot. And you also have a podcast. So we talked about that. And you have on some guests that have some difficult conversations. And you add social media, you add your organization, kind of posting the animals in need. How do you personally manage the emotional toll that's kind of coming at you from different directions of constantly seeing these animals in need, knowing that you can't help them all?
I mean, the podcast has really exposed me to animal welfare issues that I didn't even know existed. Mm-hmm. And there's benefits to that in the sense that I'm learning, and I'm happy to be learning some things. But also, like, to your point, there's a massive amount of downside to that. Like, just to give you an example, I don't know if you knew this but horses are still sold at auction for slaughter in the United States.
Yeah.
And I did not know that was a thing. I just genuinely had never thought about it. And so that sucks. And hearing that sucks. And knowing that just sucks, for lack of a better word. But I get it. I think it goes back to just focusing on what I can do. So there's this theory out there that I learned years and years ago. It's circle of concern and circle of control. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that and utilized that. You probably have. But I use that a lot in my life in general. So there's this massive circle of things that I'm concerned about in this world. And it's gotten bigger and bigger in the last 2 years, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, I think
right. So I have a lot of things I'm worried about and concerned about, and that, you know, could really put me in like a super dark place.
Yeah.
But the circle of things that I can influence and control is much smaller. So when I feel something in that circle of concern really starting to weigh me down, I try to focus on what I can control. And it's not being ignorant to those things that I'm concerned about, right? It's not just saying, well, I can't do anything about the fact that horses are sold for slaughter, so I'm not going to do anything about it. It's like, okay, well, like, what can I do? Okay, well, I could talk about it on the podcast. I can make a donation to an organization. I can talk to legislators. You know, how do we get this outlawed in the United States or in my particular state or whatever? So that's part of the reason I started the podcast. It's just because I wanted an opportunity to platform a little bit. And if I can reach 10 people and one of them decides to adopt instead of buy a puppy, or one of them decides to foster because I've changed their mind, then I'm like, okay, great. I'm moving the needle in the right direction and I'm happy to be doing that. Like if a couple of people listen to the episodes where I talk to the legislation and lobbying groups, or I talk to Senator Pisitano, who is coming on and that episode's released on Tuesday, and decides to reach out to their own local legislator, then I have done what I'm physically capable of doing. And that's all I can really expect from myself. And so honestly, if I get really buried, I might cry for a minute and then I just go, okay, it is what it is. If there's not anything I can do about it, I kind of just need to turn the phone off or scroll past it or go do something different. And if there is something I can do about it to have a positive impact, then I need to do that. That circle of influence and that circle of concern has really helped me sort of break those things down and try not to worry as much about the things that I can't control, but really say, okay, what can I do? I can vote. And I can talk to my legislators. And you know what I mean? Like I can spend money with organizations that support the things that I support, right? If I don't like animal testing in labs, I can make sure I'm not buying products that test on animals, right? And so like, how often are we thinking about those things? But you can only do what you can do as a human being. And so I just really try to focus on that as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, that has actually been one of the techniques that has really helped me as well. And the thing is, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face. There's a difference between pain and suffering. And so you can go and do the things, right? You can sign the petitions. You can contact the legislature. You can boycott certain companies. You can donate money. It's still going to hurt, right? So for example, finding out that, yes, horses are still auctioned off for slaughter, that hurts. And that's something, once you know, you can't unknow. But being able to say, okay, I'm going to donate to this organization. I'm going to sign this petition. I'm going to boycott this company. I'm going to contact my reps and my senators. But then I have to, maybe I'm going to make some posts on social media, but then emotionally, I'm going to have to let that go. Right. So whether it's kind of these big systemic issues like horse slaughter, or if it's more kind of a local in your backyard issue, like there's a particular animal that needs to be fostered, we have to, do what you can, but then you have to let because there is so much, most things we can't control. And so I think that, that at least for me has taken some time, and it's something I still have to just manage really on a daily basis. And so for someone who's listening and they feel like, I'm not there yet, I really feel like I'm in over my head, what is one suggestion or one boundary they could put in place today that would make, even if it's small, would make an immediate difference?
I think one of the things that they could do, this could be helpful. Write down everything you feel like you're overwhelmed by. Just physically write it down. And then take that list and physically put it in order of priority. What are the things that I really need to take care of? What are the things that I can really impact? What are the things that I really need to get done first? Those are the things that are non-negotiables, right? Feeding your kids, feeding yourself, getting to work or getting to school or whatever that is. And then what are the things that are like less priority, right? Because we can be overwhelmed by a lot and then maybe not be able to find the things that we actually need to take care of. So my husband and I actually just recently had this conversation because we throw a huge Memorial Day party every year. And he was like a couple weeks ago starting to feel really overwhelmed about all the stuff we had to get done. And I was like, hey, it's okay if we don't put the laundry away today. What's the big deal, right? Like, do we want to do it? Sure. Yeah. Would it be nice to do it? Yeah, absolutely. But is that a high priority thing right now? Or is it really important that we fix the gate to the pool? Right? No, that's really important. We got to make sure that gate's working for everybody's safety, right? So let's make that a priority today. And then if we don't get to the laundry, like it's okay. So write those things down and maybe try to put them in priority order so that you can focus on the things that are really, really, really critical to whatever is going on, safety, survival, whatever. And then forgive yourself for not getting to everything, especially if it's some of that stuff at the bottom of the list. And that's okay. You can chip away at these things. I think maybe that could be, you are the one that's so experienced and educated in this. I'm just kind of thinking about the things that have worked for me and really just kind of stepping back and going, do I need to freak out about this thing right now? Is it something I want to do? Yes. Is it something I have to do? Maybe I can give myself a little slack on that one.
Yeah. And the thing is I'm educated on all this stuff, but therapists sometimes, like doctors, are not always their best patients. So
right.
Sometimes it's more of a, do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. And I've been honest about this. I haven't gotten this all figured out. I'm
right.
a work in progress. I will always be a work in progress.
We all.
Yeah. But the thing is that's how you learn. Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that you have this podcast now. And I love the fact that you're using it as a platform, because I think one of the things too is to be an animal advocate or activist. I think people, kind of dismiss the fact that we can also use media to do that, whether it's through an audio podcast, videos, social media posts, interviews like this. And so I think that is also part of advocacy. And I think for both of us, we are both animal advocates and mental health advocates. And I know that you are like me and you have a passion for the people who work to protect animals. And so where can people go to learn more about you or your podcast?
Thank you. So the podcast right now can be found on any platform that you listen. So it's the Foster Files, stories about animal rescue and welfare. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I do have a YouTube channel where I post all of my video interviews, my very first one being with Miss Jennifer Blau right here. So I do have also an Instagram, the Foster Files podcast. And on Instagram, you can actually, in my bio, you can find my link tree. And then you can also find my link to subscribe. I just launched a monthly newsletter where I'm really just going to talk about kind of anything that's top of mind, but then also what's coming up in the next month in relationship to who I'm talking to on the podcast.
Nice.
So, you can reach me at the Foster Files podcast at Gmail, but that's kind of where I'm at. I don't have a website or anything yet. This is very much a hobby. I think, if I may, one of the things that I found was, what am I good at and how can I use that skill towards animal advocacy? And one of the things that I've always been very good at is literally just talking to anybody. Like, I don't get anxious about it. I don't get nervous about it. I've been in sales my entire adult life. So talking to people is very comfortable for me. So I was like, well, how can I parlay that into wanting to do more animal advocacy work? And that's kind of where this came about. So if you're somebody who wants to be an advocate or in the animal welfare space, and maybe you dread talking to people, maybe you like numbers. Well, they're always looking for treasurers at organizations. Maybe you're the kind of person who is a little bit OCD and loves to clean. Well, they're always looking for people to clean out kennels. Maybe you want to spend time with an animal, but you can't foster. Maybe that's just not in the cards for you, and that's okay. A lot of shelters are doing doggy day out programs where you can take a dog out for a few hours and spend some time with them, and they get out of the shelter, and you can help the shelter team assess the dog more clearly outside of the shelter environment. So take the skills you already have and the things that you already love to do and use those as part of your advocacy work. And you'll find that it can be really, putting two really great things together.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because I don't care if you are doing laundry once a week at a shelter, walking dogs at a shelter, or you are, like you said, kind of advocating on podcasts like we do, or writing your representatives. It all matters. Every little piece of this matters. So please don't ever, I'm not doing as much as that person. Don't discount what you are doing. that shelter needs and appreciates you doing the laundry, in the dog, or taking an animal on a day trip, or snuggling the cats or the bunnies or what have you. Every little thing makes a difference, at least for that animal or that organization. And you really will have a ripple effect. So, Kelly, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. It's been really good to talk to you again, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to remind everyone, be kind to yourselves and be kind to animals. Thank you, Jen.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Beyond Compassion Fatigue. Please note that this podcast is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. It is not meant to provide medical advice or substitute for psychological care. Take what serves you, leave what doesn't, and reach out for professional help if you need additional support.